What's up, world? I'm Cameron McKinney, and this is Pop Culture Spotlight, a podcast about the movie The Fantastic Four: First Steps. Here's a quick synopsis. Reed Richards, Sue and Johnny Storm, and Ben Grimm, the members of the Fantastic Four, the sole protectors of Earth 628, go up against the planet-devouring Galactus. The film stars Pedro Pascal, Vanessa Kirby, Joseph Quinn, Ebon Bachrach, Julia Garner, Ralph Ineson, Paul Walter Hauser, and Natasha Lyonne. Standout performances. Actress Vanessa Kirby has gotten to play supporting roles in big blockbusters, Mission Impossible Fallout, Mission Impossible Dead Reckoning Part 1, and Hobbs and Shaw. The Fantastic Four: First Steps gives her a chance to play a lead in one, and man does she run with it. She brings real emotion to the role of Sue Storm, who is becoming a first-time mother, and I don't want to spoil anything, but there is a birthing scene in this movie that made me think of her super intense birthing scene in Pieces of a Woman, for which she was nominated for an Oscar, and that is not something I expected in this movie. She's far and away the key of the Fantastic Four: First Steps. If her arc falls flat, so would the rest of the movie. I think we can all agree sometimes it can be silly when an actor plays a superhero. I mean, she's playing a character who disappears. It's hard to take that seriously all of the time, but with Kirby, you buy her completely as the Invisible Woman because she's a spectacular performer. It's nearly impossible to watch television or films right now and not see Pedro Pascal on the screen. This year alone, he's been in season 2 of The Last of Us and 3 movies that all came out this summer. Materialist, a movie I will be talking about next week on this podcast. Eddington, a movie I want to see badly, and The Fantastic Four: First Steps, where he plays Reed Richards, aka Mr. Fantastic. First off, what a different choice for the role. The character was previously played by Ioan Gruffudd and Miles Teller. Pedro Pascal makes strong choices with the character, one of them being with his voice. I was thinking about it while watching the movie, and it's at times reminiscent of how JFK talked, which is in line with the rest of the movie. If Kirby's Sue brings the emotions, then Pascal's Reed brings the logic, and I liked the fact that he views his genius as a bit of a curse, and that it causes him to blame himself for things that are not his fault or out of his control. This is very in line with who Reed Richards is in the comic books. He's always the smartest guy in the room, a leader. It's a performance that grew on me as the movie went on. I ultimately think he's the right actor for the role. Like his co-star Pedro Pascal, actor Joseph Quinn has seemingly shown up in everything lately, and for me, he's a real chameleon of an actor. In A Quiet Place Day 1, he plays the subdued Eric. In Gladiator 2, he plays egomaniacal Emperor Geta, giving my favorite performance in that movie, and LPO Sam in the movie Warfare. In The Fantastic Four: First Steps, Quinn plays Johnny Storm, aka the Human Torch. Now, the most beloved portrayal of this character was previously by Chris Evans in Fantastic Four and Fantastic Four: Rise of the Silver Surfer, because Evans was fun and understood the kind of popcorn movies he was in. I like the fact that Joseph Quinn took the character in a completely different direction. His Johnny is someone who wants to be respected by his brother-in-law Reed. I was impressed by Quinn's portrayal of the character, and there's a scene in the movie where Johnny confronts the Silver Surfer, played by Julia Garner, that I believe to be the scene of the movie, and it's in large part due to Quinn. That gets us to the fourth and final member of the Fantastic Four, Ben Grimm, aka The Thing, played by actor Ebon Bachrach. I've talked about this before. Hit television shows can give actors chances to be movie stars. Recent examples include Euphoria and Stranger Things, and right now that's certainly the case with The Bear. You have Jeremy Allen White in an upcoming film playing Bruce Springsteen, and Io Adebri in the next film from Luca Guadagnino, and for Bachrach, I saw him in Girls in the Punisher before The Bear. He's a very good, intense actor with high-quality comedic sensibilities. He's hilarious as Richie in The Bear. This is the character in Ben Grimm I have the most complicated feelings about. He's a hard one to capture on screen One thing I liked was he wasn't spending this whole movie begging Reed to come up with a cure. He was content being the Thing. In the past, played by Michael Chiklis and then Jamie Bell, that's the whole crux of the character, wanting to go back to being a normal guy. He was treated as like a Frankenstein monster. This is the first movie that made him feel like a real human being. What I did not like, and this is a Marvel thing, is when they think they found a good comedic gag, they overkill it. And for the Thing, it was him growing a silly rock beard. I was having flashbacks to Fat Thor in Endgame. It's okay to do that for one scene, but it becomes a distraction after a while and starts to take away from the movie a bit. Bachrach himself is fine in the movie. He grills Johnny. He's loyal to Reed. Actress Julia Gardner is best known for her television work in Ozarks and Inventing Anna, and has given great performances in the indies, The Assistant and The Royal Hotel, both from writer-director Kitty Green. This year, she's made the jump to more mainstream films. First with the horror film Wolfman, then with the Fantastic Four First Steps, and also she has the horror film Weapons coming out. Talking about her in the Fantastic Four First Steps, she does play the Silver Surfer, just not the one most are used to. She plays Shala Bal, who is forced to find planets for Galactus in order to save her own. It's tough to judge a performance like this, but I'll keep going back to this. I believe she is in the scene of the movie with Joseph Quinn's Johnny Storm. Like, I think that is the most compelling scene. That is the selling point of the movie, for me anyway. And finally, I was super pumped when Ralph Ineson was announced to be playing Galactus, because I knew he would bring gravitas to this omnipotent being, mostly off of his performance in The Green Knight, playing the titular character. And I do weirdly see similarities. The Green Knight early on makes a threat to Gawain, and Galactus attempts to bargain with the Fantastic Four, and eventually both characters in both movies come back to settle the score. He's so good at playing larger-than-life figures. The character in Fantastic Four Rise of the Silver Surfer is literally a storm cloud. How lame. I find most Marvel movies have a villain problem, and this one, the Fantastic Four First Steps, does not. After seeing the movie, I get why Matt Shakman was the ideal choice to direct the Fantastic Four First Steps. It's a period piece, and that is something he did brilliantly well in WandaVision with the different eras of sitcoms recreated. He knows how to make something feel nostalgic. WandaVision and First Steps feels like it was made by the same filmmaker, which is a very good sign for the MCU. These movies work on me best when I feel authorship from the director, and early on, it was filled with that. Jon Favreau with Iron Man 1 and 2, Joss Whedon with Avengers and Avengers Age of Ultron, James Gunn with all three Guardians of the Galaxy movies, Taika Waititi with Thor Ragnarok and Thor Love and Thunder, Ryan Coogler with Black Panther and Black Panther Wakanda Forever, John Watts with the Spider-Man movies, Peyton Reed with the Ant-Man movies, and the Russo brothers with Captain America Winter Soldier, Captain America Civil War, Avengers Infinity War, and Avengers Endgame. The MCU movies I don't like are the ones that feel like they were made by a committee to appease a frivolous deadline, and it feels like Marvel is getting back on track to making movies that are director-oriented. Jake Schreier directed Thunderbolts and is going to be directing an X-Men movie. The Russo brothers are back on board, and you have Shakman, who should be the only one directing future Fantastic Four movies moving forward. I think now's a good time to talk about the movie recreating the 1960s, and what I liked most about it was the space aspect of the story, the characters being astronauts, and the celebration of them going back into space. There was something quaint about that, like that was being treated like a big deal, the fact that these four characters were going into space. It's a hard thing to convey, but I like the fact that everything that was happening in this movie was treated like it was a big deal, which is not something you can say about most recent Marvel films, and that gets me to this. I can't stress this enough. This is the first MCU film in a while that was allowed to be its own thing. You can walk into this movie without seeing the last few movies. The sole focus here was to make a good Fantastic Four movie, and I'm happy to report mission accomplished. My personal experience watching this movie was this. I saw it with someone who did not like the movie in the end, and maybe this is too strong of a point, but here it is. If you don't like the Fantastic Four First Steps, I question whether or not you actually like the Fantastic Four as an entity. This is what they are. They are a superhero group that's a family. It's about their dynamic as a group as much as it is about saving the world. After 3 close to unwatchable movies about them in a row, this is a victory. Another thing that needs to be said is the relationship between Reed and Sue is one of the most successful romantic pairings in an MCU movie. The ones I like are Robert Downey Jr.'s Iron Man and Gwyneth Paltrow's Pepper Potts, Chris Evans' Captain America and Haley Atwell's Peggy Carter, Chris Hemsworth's Thor and Natalie Portman's Jane Foster, and Tom Holland's Spider-Man and Zendaya's MJ. But I find with a lot of the other ones, it feels like the movies have no actual interest in the relationships between the characters and just use them to move the plot forward. Pascal and Kirby have real chemistry in this movie, and I think this movie, The Fantastic Four First Steps, fixes almost every issue I've had with past Marvel movies. Smart decisions were made with this movie. The fact that it is not an origin story. Reed and Sue are already married at the beginning. The relationships of the group have already been formed. It's just about building the world out and choosing the right specific tone, which in my opinion they did. I wouldn't be talking about a Marvel movie if I didn't at least get into where are we headed from here. So we know that Robert Downey Jr. is coming back to play Doctor Doom in Avengers Doomsday, which presumably means the Fantastic Four are going to be at the center of the MCU moving forward, which I think is a good thing. Without Captain America or Iron Man, it needs iconic heroes played by good actors leading the franchise. With the 4 casting choices of this iteration of the Fantastic Four, Marvel was able to hit that sweet spot of picking 4 actors who are big in the moment and are also right for the roles that they are playing. So something I've said in the past was that Marvel's future was all going to depend on what they do with the Fantastic Four and the X-Men, because those were their 2 big plays left. Well, we've already seen one of them, and I think they're headed towards the right direction. Now, Doctor Doom is a big one. If Robert Downey Jr. comes back and gives a great performance as Doctor Doom, we're all going to go wild for it. I still think the X-Men is key because I don't really understand what they're doing with the X-Men. You still have Wolverine in the mix. You're bringing back Cyclops, Nightcrawler, and all of these characters and actors that we've already seen before. So I'm interested in what Marvel is going to do to differentiate their version of the X-Men from the multiple movies we've already seen. It was different with the Fantastic Four because there have only been bad versions of these movies. We've never seen a good Fantastic Four movie, so the mission statement was clear: just make a good Fantastic Four movie, and they did that. With X-Men, it's more complicated because there have been, in my opinion, so many good X-Men movies. And no offense, but I find it really hard to believe that they will ever make a movie as good or better than X-Men Days of Future Past. It's interesting that DC is in a similar position. I mean, James Gunn just had this huge victory with Superman, and now he has to think about how he's going to incorporate the Batman into his universe, because we've all seen so many Batman movies, and with Marvel, we've seen so many X-Men movies. So what are you going to do that's so different than what we've already seen? I think it's the big question of the MCU moving forward. What are you going to you do with the X-Men. Hugh Jackman can only play Wolverine for so long. And yeah, this is something that you hear from time to time for people where there are so many other characters in the X-Men universe you can make a movie about. Well, guess what? The popular ones are Professor X and Wolverine. If they're not in your movies, you're going to have a problem. Going into the Fantastic Four First Steps, there were no iconic actors attached to these roles in the past. But with X-Men, you have Patrick Stewart as Professor X and Hugh Jackman as Wolverine. My point is, it's going to be harder for Marvel to make a noteworthy X-Men movie than it was for them to make a stellar Fantastic Four film. Box office, as of this recording, the Fantastic Four First Steps has made over $227 million at the box office. It is doing better than most recent Marvel movies, but like what I was talking about last week with Superman, it doesn't appear like this movie is going to reach $1 billion, which in the past has been the barometer for success for these huge tentpole films. We got to a point as a culture that no matter what hero was on the poster, that movie was guaranteed to be a hit. You had Tom Hardy's Venom making over $856 million. Where we are currently is only the most famous of comic book characters are making huge money at the box office. I'm talking the Spider-Mans of the world, Deadpool. Not even every Batman movie is guaranteed to make $1 billion anymore. I think Avengers Doomsday will make over $1 billion when it comes out, but I do not think it will come anywhere near as close to Avengers Endgame, the movie that at one point was the highest grossing film of all time. That came out at a point in time where just everyone was seeing these movies. They were a big deal, and I think they're weirdly becoming more niche. Now, I get it, it's hard to call a movie niche when it's still making a ton of money, but they're just not in the same cultural conversation that they were before. And I really do wonder if even upping the quality is going to help these movies get back their cultural relevance. I feel like filmmaking-wise, superhero movies are at a good state. I think that Marvel are now coming out with good movies, and I think that DC is coming out with good movies for the most part. But if you're asking me if I think these movies are going to revert back to being the biggest movies in the world, I'm not there yet. I need to see more, and I guess it's all going to come down to Avengers Doomsday. Part of the issue I have with that movie is I think they think we're all excited to see a bunch of superheroes team up. I think what made Avengers Infinity War and Avengers Endgame special is because we already had a history of those actors playing those roles. We just saw the first movie with the Fantastic Four, and now you're going to have them team up with other newer characters we're not that acquainted with. Like, I think it's a bit of a dicey situation, and I'm interested to see how it all plays out. There was a build-up and anticipation to Infinity War and Endgame, and I don't think that's there with Avengers Doomsday, and that could end up being the missing ingredient that they won't be able to duplicate maybe ever again. And that's maybe the most fascinating thing about Marvel moving forward. If they're not able to replicate the formula from before, are they able to do something new and different? Are they able to find a new route to take, or are they going to feel lost? From my point of view, they should solely focus on making the best movies possible, and then it will all come together and you will find success. Maybe not as much as before, but it will be there if the quality of the movies are high. The Fantastic Four First Steps was a movie that I was highly anticipating. I had big expectations going into it, and all of those expectations were met. It's not just the best movie about the Fantastic Four. It's not just a good superhero movie. It's a good movie in general. general, which is something that Marvel desperately needed it to be. The last thing I want to talk about on this podcast about this movie is the child of Reed Richards and Sue Storm, Franklin, who has become a polarizing element of the movie. Some people enjoyed him, some people didn't. I think it's a fair critique to say that Franklin was more of a plot device in this movie, and that he'll become, hopefully, a more fully developed character further down the line in the MCU. Overall, I'm excited as to where exactly Marvel is going to take the Fantastic Four next. Thanks for listening to this edition of Pop Culture Spotlight. There'll be an episode of the podcast every Thursday on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. I highly recommend you check out the Fantastic Four First Steps. Next week on the podcast, I'm talking about the romantic comedy Materialist from writer-director Celine Song, starring Dakota Johnson, Chris Evans, and Pedro Pascal. So tune in to that and please rate, review, and subscribe.